Hi, and welcome to the next Pajama Talk. And today my guest is Eva Ferreira, professor, speaker, and front-end developer. Hi, Eva.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You are speaker, professor, and front-end developer. And which one is more important? Or both three hats are equal?
I do try for the three of them to be equal, but I won't deny that for a long time in my career, I only did teaching. And I felt like I was kind of leaving behind a lot of my knowledge and not enjoying working in teams and learning real world experience. Even though I love teaching, I realized eventually that I cannot do just that because, the whole thing of actually working in a company and working with a team of people in very diverse things is like QA, back end, front end, that brings you a lot of knowledge that you can actually go and teach. And those kind of experiences that makes your teaching better. So I say that right now I try to have them all at the same level, but I won't deny that they feed each other. And that's the most interesting thing, that I learn one thing in one place and I can take it to the other one.
I remember when I was in the university, most of course, there are some professors, for example, some theoretical physics or something, like a fundamental. You don't need to have hands-on experience in that. But for programming, it kind of different thing because you cannot teach people when you don't have like real life experience, or it's not true.
I did that for a long time. And I think that for me it was very nice because I was very young and I was just beginning to get into this tech world, and to actually explain something to someone means you need to fully understand it or to try your best. You really need to know how to work in a team, how to work with QA, and okay, what are the technologies that we use the most. And the only way to know that is to actually get into the industry and be giving in working on that.
You were a professor for a webmasters for a web area. As you may remember, like 4 years ago, we have completely different web, completely different
Yeah.
browsers. Even language wasn't the same. So, and yeah, again, how can you teach someone like in the web area, because this area changing rapidly?
When I began, I was teaching PHP because PHP was the thing back then. And I will not say it was useless. I learned a lot doing PHP and I learned a lot teaching PHP. But eventually, you need to know that the industry has moved on to another thing and you need to teach the new thing, because the thing is you want your students to have a job after they go through the teaching. You don't want the students to say, okay, I learned this and I'm never going to use that. So you need to kind of get up to date with what the industry is using, and the only way to know what they are using is to be in it.
I don't know, like in my country, I'm from Russia. The big problem was for teaching, like in the kind of government, like official government university, is that they have this approved programs, and you cannot just put any like random language that you wanted. So for teachers, because friend of mine, and actually I had this kind of like experience. So they you're forced to teach people, students, something that is already approved by some ministry and other stuff. Is it true for you?
We kind of update the curricula once every 2 years. Um, we don't want to update it more often because we actually need to know what works and what doesn't. So we update once every 2 years, and then we test the new curricula for a year. We talk to each other, to the other professors, and we say, okay, do we like this? Is this working? Do the students find it useful? We do change it one every twice, every 2 years, and I think that's a kind of a good timing.
Mhm.
But I do understand, like, if you go to other universities or if you go to other programs like 4-year careers, you have so much bureaucracy in it, so much, like you say, like the ministry saying you have to teach this. And if you want to change that, maybe you have to do it without the approval of the ministry and teach the students something else without them knowing, because otherwise it's like you will still be teaching very, very old things.
many friends of mine and like my colleagues, they skipped like high education, like university, and they just jumped into some junior position. Some of them, they think like, wow, it is so good, so much better than just sitting in the university on the lectures. And this for these 4 years, I don't know, gained so much more experience than in the university.
I actually dropped out of 3 universities. I tried to learn something because I found it interesting. I got into university. I found it boring that it was so long and that it had so many subjects that I didn't even care about. I found myself once or twice in my life where I wish I had a degree. Um, Not only because I really wish I had a degree because it would look awesome on my wall, but also because I did find myself in interviews where they pretended they didn't care about having a degree, but they asked you questions from computer science degrees. And one of those interviews was in the one of those huge, development companies. And it's like we can pretend we don't need degrees, but you do kind of need computer science knowledge that is taught only in university if you want to get into huge companies with huge salaries.
Talking about IT and computer science, so you are front-end engineer, right?
I'm the leader of a front-end team.
And there is one like bias, or I don't know, some arrogance in backend developers, or maybe like like real C++ hardcore developers, that for a front end you don't need much. It's just HTML, CSS, and nothing more. JavaScript. Even a baby can learn JavaScript. I've heard these opinions.
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, is front end kind of really easier than other?
It is true that it's not really hard to get to know the basics of HTML and CSS and JavaScript, but to actually do it right, that's not simple and that requires a lot of knowledge and experience. So I kind of do agree that writing the code is not hard, but doing it right is very, very hard. I can write backend too. I can go and write Java code or C code. I can actually write C code, only C, because I learned that, but I will suck at it. And I know I will be very bad, and I know that I will write code that might work for only a couple of days, and they will break. But yeah.
What do you think? Will we see this kind of desacralization of computer science that previously only like chosen one can learn programming language, but right now even kids at school. So soon we will see that people learn like English, maybe math, and some kind of like computer science.
The whole thing of trying to make programming a thing for the selected few, like people who know or who know like math and all that I don't know much about. I think that thing of trying to take it from the general people and putting only in a couple of people and only a few selected individuals can do it. I think that didn't turn out to be something good. That turned out to be like we feel like we are selected or something like doesn't make any sense. Opening it up will actually help a lot to bring in kind of different people, make teams that are more diverse. And at the same time, I think that maybe many people are scared about bringing in more people. They say, oh no, because our salaries are that high because we are so. Yeah, but it doesn't work like that. I think that when we teach somebody to program, we are not really making programmers. And I see that a lot in the people who are my students. They don't necessarily want to program for the rest of their lives. Many of them don't want to be developers at all. They just want to learn something new. Maybe they just want to use programming as a tool for something different. We won't have 1,000 programmers or software engineers at the end of the day. We will have more people that can code as a tool that they can use for a different job. And if they do want to do programming or software engineer, or if they want to be developers, then that's amazing. But we shouldn't assume that just because they know how to program, they will want to be developers.
Of course, as a team leader, like you're basically a manager. What if one of your teammates like would say, for example, you're asking, so what is your motivation? Kind of what motivates you to work here? And this person will respond, only money, decent salary, and yeah, I'm here for money.
When I interview people, I do try to get people that are very enthusiastic about what they do. I think the people who do it for money, I don't know if they last really, because getting to I don't know if in your country perhaps or in different areas, but I know that in Argentina, if you actually want a good salary, you need to be a senior developer. And as senior developers, you will get, probably a job in somewhere outside Argentina. You will be paid in dollars and all that wonderful thing that's what usually comes in the news, because in the news they are like, oh yeah, you should be a developer, you will make money in dollars, and that's much better than Argentinian pesos. And that's reserved for the few people who have years and years of experience. And I don't think if people are in for the money, they will actually stay for 5 years minimum to become senior developers without beginning to at least like what they are doing.
I've met people from the other side, like senior developers who been here for years, like I don't know, 10 years. They burnt out, but they can't leave because of the salary. That's a big problem.
I think that's something also to tackle, is how we manage burnout in the industry, because we don't manage it at all. And burnout can actually destroy a very good developer. You can have a person who is very enthusiastic about something and then completely burn this person out, and it won't be a good developer anymore, it won't be a good team working anymore. And that will turn probably into this person who is only there for the money, because I always have this salary, I cannot just change industries and begin making less money because I have.
Yeah, I think maybe one of the reasons of like why we don't manage burnout so effective, it's a part of the industry, because in many companies we have like performance reviews, like this mindset of constant growth. So you have your plan, your personal plan. It's not true for all companies on the market, but many like American style companies, they have it. So you just can't say, okay, this my work-life balance, and I don't want to grow. I want to maybe keep at the same level. I don't want to be worse, but still I don't want to like grow every year.
That is also up to the managers and the people on top, showing you that you can take time off, that if you don't feel okay one day, then you just, I'm not going to work today, and that show that is okay. I think it's very important for me to like see my boss taking days off. And I think that's good also for my team. Like if one day I feel like I'm having a terrible day and I don't want to work, and just show my team that is okay, that you don't need to burn out, you don't need to be there all the time. And it's very important to have people who show you that that's okay.
What keeps you motivated, like and what motivates you and moves you forward?
Teaching and speaking are the two things that I totally love them. And I know that in order to make those two things, I need a full-time job that pays me well and that allows me to teach for a public university that doesn't really pay me too much. What motivates me is to actually work with very nice people. And that's sometimes very hard to find, like people who like what they're doing, who can have a very good conversation on how to not only improve the product, but actually make something for the users. I think I'm doing the right thing. I think I'm doing a good job. And I am surrounded by people who care about the user. I am not surrounded only by people who care about making money, but by people who actually want to do something good.
Teaching, it is kind of like telling the truth, the words of wisdom to fresh people, to students, but you are also organizer of the conferences. So what's the point? Why to organize conference?
Back in 2014, I began doing public speaking, and I had to travel a lot of kilometers to go to an event because there weren't many events in Latin America. Around 2015, 2016, I ended up getting together with another developer, Lourdes Montano, who is right now living in the US. And we said, okay, well, we need to have conferences in Latin America. We both love CSS. Why don't we sit down and create an event? So we end up in 2016 creating the first edition of CSS Conf Argentina with her. And it was awesome because it was having this opportunity to actually show local talent and to actually show people that, hey, we can do it too, even if we cannot do it with all the vast, wonderful thing that events in Europe or US have, you know?
So, as an organizer and organizer in some country where English is not the main language, so you have two options: either organize something in your native language, and prose, of course, that's your native language, and for most of the speakers, and the community kind of local, and no communication gap. Other option is to organize something in English, or probably in English. And on one hand, you can invite people from other countries, but on the other hand, not everyone from the community speaks English. Well, at least it's true for my community. So, how to solve this problem, or what's your approach on this?
The decision that we took back in 2016, and we did the same in the second edition of CSS Conf Argentina, was to have live translation. And with live translation, what we did was not only making sure that the Argentinians would understand the talks from people from abroad, but also that we could provide Argentinian speakers an option to choose in which language they wanted to do a talk, because that also helped us to basically let anybody come to the stage and give a talk. The most important part was also like that you can actually like see yourself on the stage, and that's something that I really look back into my career. And I remember I wanted to do CSS talks because I saw Leah Vero, and you want to see something like a woman in a stage or a Latino on a stage and say, hey, I can do that too. And you don't have to have a wonderful level of English, you can just do live translation.
We had this experience like on some local conferences, but turns out it is extremely hard to find a person who is translator.
Yeah, we had to find some very specific translating service, because otherwise, I get it. Sometimes they translate terms that are not really translatable. Like we don't translate CSS properties to Spanish. So it wasn't easy, but we did a very thorough research to actually find translators that could do software conferences.
About Argentina, and that's true for many countries, for Russia, and at least from my experience, people kind of like minds, they're floating somewhere to other countries, like maybe Europe, London, Amsterdam, Berlin. They are hubs of software engineering around the world. I don't know, Silicon Valley. Is it a problem, this mind kind of like migration?
I work for a Canadian company. I don't work for an Argentinian company. The thing for us, at least, I don't know for other countries, but for us, the main problem is inflation. So I remember working in Argentinian companies. I worked in Argentinian companies all my life before this one. And basically, every 4 to 6 months, you had to go to your manager and ask for a raise, because inflation is 50%. So basically, you need a raise every 4 months, and it doesn't make sense. And for the companies, it's so hard, because it's like, I cannot give you, I can give you 20, and it's like, but if you give me 20, then my salary will lose money because the inflation was 30. Well, I can give you 25, and that thing that take, and that's one of the things that actually end up destroying the industry. And the fact that we can actually work remotely to another countries, or that we can just, emigrate to different places, are the things that is really extremely hard to find good developers in Argentina that works for Argentinian companies.
In some companies, you don't have much options if you want to grow. So yeah, you are on the senior level, and then you don't have any other option uh, other than become a manager. So if you say, okay, I don't want to manage people, I just want to write code. At some point of your career, you will just stop because you don't have any other options. Do you feel like this?
I did wanted this path because I really enjoy like talking to people and all that. So I know that I enjoy this, but I know of people that they just want to code and that they are amazing developers and just want to code. They don't want to be managers, and that is also okay. And I think that the industry is a little bit harder perhaps for them because there's no like a path that you can follow. I have no solution to that. I just say that I know the feeling. I know people that are amazing and that I am very thankful to work with them. I don't know, you can be a lead developer, you can be, you
Yeah.
will be making more money than your fellow developers, but that's it.
I know that you are a GDE, Google Developer Expert,
Mhm.
in front end. So how do you have time for everything, like for your full-time job, GDE, speaking, organizing, and other stuff? So it's only 24 hours.
So the pandemic kind of stopped me a little bit. I'm no longer doing as many things as before. Back in the day, I worked very hard on one talk, and I used to do that talk across different events and across the year. And I don't regret that at all. It's like I work like maybe 3 months on a CSS or JavaScript and conference talk. And then I use that very same talk across the different conferences. And that works for conference organizers, that works for me, that works for the audience. And also it lets me like modify the talk and make it better and improve it. So that's what I usually do. And for teaching, it's the same. For teaching, it's like we teach every 6 months the same course. So I know that I can improve things, but I don't have to redo the whole thing every time.
One advice, or maybe two advices, you can give to non-professional speakers, like for the beginners.
I would say try to find a subject that you are extremely enthusiastic about. Don't feel like you need to do something useful. Like one of my favorite talks, and I think that people's favorite of mine is when I did a talk about how to create an invisibility cloak using JavaScript. And that's not something useful. Come on, that's something, but it was so much fun, and it was so much fun, and I'm a Harry Potter fan, so it was like this is the best place of my life creating a CSS call and a CSS talk. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
useful. You need to enjoy it, and people will enjoy it if you do.
So talking about online, do you prefer like off? Okay, of course everyone prefers offline, so it's stupid question. So can you deal with online at least sometime?
I think it's more of having this space where I can just relax and learn something new. And in my home, I just don't do it. I don't know why. I just don't feel like, giving up a whole day of work. And I do appreciate having events that are open to pretty much everybody. Because if we go back to having CSS Conf Argentina, because there are no CSS Conf or no events in Latin America, then having online events actually help that anybody can actually attend an event of very high quality without moving from their houses. And that is awesome. But at least from the speaker point of view, for me, it's not as enjoyable as an in-person conference.
Do you personally right now have any like education for you, or as a developer, how do you educate yourself?
I used to take advantages of conferences that I went to. to learn new stuff and to actually get to know what are the available things that are new and that I didn't get to work on. And last year, honestly, I wouldn't say I was stuck because I did learn on an everyday basis working because that's what you do. But I didn't learn that much last year because I was so used to learning with conferences. So when conferences
Yeah.
disappear, it was like, oh no. But what I usually did was learning conferences, read newsletters, and try to keep up with that. And then at work, try something new. Like, okay, we need to build a design system. What do we build it with? Do we build it with a storybook? Do we use something different? If we are going to use a storybook, maybe perhaps before getting into a storybook, we can research the other opportunities, the other options. The same goes like with React. Hey, what is going on in Vue these days? Can we use Vue
Yeah.
perhaps for a new project? Is that okay? And try to find opportunities there in the everyday at work.
In my company and in some other companies that I know, there is a special position for people who is really professional in CSS. Like in my company, we call them crafter because they craft
That's
things.
a beautiful name.
Yeah, but I see that in most companies, like CSS developers, they are more closer either to UX, so they kind of half designers, half CSS, CSS plus HTML, or on the other hand, they close to programming, like JavaScript and other frameworks, and they far away from design. So and there is no one in the middle.
At least in our company, what we end up doing is we end up creating a front-end team that could work across the company in different products at the same time. So that way we will make sure to standardize most of the front end, because some of the front end is made like in JSP with Java, whatever. And we have some very old products and some technical dev of some of the products. So we kind of realized that the company didn't have a front-end developer. And so that's why we created the front-end developer team. And the idea of the front-end developer team is for it to provide resources to the whole products and to try to slowly standardize, beginning to build a component library with a design system, working very closely with the design team. We don't have such fancy names, but you just gave me an idea, so I'm going to take it. We have UI engineers, so that's it.
Maybe last, but the most important advice for people who's just joining front-end world. What is the most important technology or stack? What should I learn? You should learn first, then second, maybe in the third place.
I would say do try to learn HTML and some basic CSS today. And when I mean CSS, I mean just try to learn how Flexbox works and how Grid works. So with that, you can pretty much solve most layout issues. And then I would say do take a look at how databases work, but only in a more general sense. If you don't like it, like learn a couple of SQL queries just to know what they mean. And if you actually see them somewhere, you actually know, okay, this is an SQL query and this is what it does. And then if you like frontend a lot, I would say like go learn a framework. Any framework you want, whether it is Vue or React or Angular. But I would say begin with HTML and CSS because it's the nicest one and it's the most forgiving languages as well.
You should enjoy the process. So for example, if you're learning one technology and the process is too quirky for you, I don't know, you tried to you started from Lisp or ClojureScript or something like this, maybe just jump to another technology and you may jump back to first one later, because not every technology have a good learning curve. Eva, it was a pleasure to having you here, and I hope that we will help to someone to pick the right stack or right way in their life. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a nice day.
And dear viewers, you know what to do. Subscribe, press the bell button, whatever. Do whatever you want if it makes you happy. So thank you very much and see you in the next one.